this video, we are going to be reading some of my old history notes, and this is going to be part 2. I think last time we read about scales. It was the last item we read about, and in this video we are going to be reading about silver and so on. So let's begin. We have silver, often found naturally with copper and lead but difficult to extract. Archaeologists found silver ornaments buried in tombs in 4000 before current era. By 2500, silver mines were in full production in what we now know as Turkey. It was used as currency until it became the essential ingredient in photographic films. Then, 3900 before current era, we have another event, culture. The Yangshao culture emerges in eastern China. People specialize in simple farming. People later discover silkworm. Then, 3500 before current era, we have bricks. Now the problem was with the first bricks that were made from mud. They mixed the mud with straw and reinforced it, then shaped the bricks in wooden folds and dried in the sun. Such bricks were used 7,000 years ago, but heavy rain would turn them back into mud. The bricks made 3500 before current era were made in the Middle East out of clay. They were heated in a kiln, which made them as hard and waterproof as pottery. Then we have a development of cities. New ways of farming required less people to be involved in the production of food. Other members of the community were free to develop cities, places where people gathered for security and to exchange goods and ideas. Then we have metal casting. It was a way of making objects by letting molten metal solidify in bold. First castings were axe heads made of copper in the Balkan region of southeast Europe. Later, copper was replaced by bronze. Then we've got olives. People on the island of Crete were growing olive trees and harvesting olives for their oil. Thousands of years later, olives are still Crete's most important crop. Then we have opium, a substance made from the unripe seed heads of poppies. It's been used to relieve pain and help people sleep, discovered on clay writings found in Assyria. Then we've got potter's wheel. The first pots were all handmade, of course. Later pots were made using a worm of clay. By 3500, potters were molding clay on a turnable base, possibly made from a round stone. Kiln-fired pottery. Clay heated in a fire didn't get hot enough to change into strong pottery. By 3500, potters developed kilns often fueled with charcoal. Kilns were expensive to run. Potters who used them needed a lot of customers and usually worked in the cities. Then we have roads. Persian Royal Road was built in 3500 before current era and stretched for 1 vehicles only worked when the wind was behind them. Sails that could catch wind from the sides came 1,500 years later. Then we also have wheels. They were first used to move things around in Mesopotamia. Made from planks, most likely to have started as an aid to potters in their quest to make it perfectly round pots. We also have wheeled vehicles. The first pictographic record was found in Sumeria, an ancient civilization in the southern Mesopotamia. Same pictograph showed the vehicles had runners like a sled. Within 500 years, wheeled vehicles were almost everywhere, found in tombs, bogs, and appear in wall paintings and carvings. Then we've got burials. Europeans began to bury people who passed away in long barrows. We also have sculpture. Sculptors in the Mesopotamian city of Uruk made more complicated items, goddess heads in white limestone inlaid with other materials. They also carved vases from alabaster, a translucent stone. We also have pottery in America. In 3500 before current era, the first known pottery items were found in America, Ecuador, and Colombia. 3400 before current era, we have writing down numbers in tens. People had been counting their possessions long before being able to write. One of the ways was by cutting notches in a stick. Then, or at first, people wrote numbers to represent the number 20. 4. By 3400 before current era, Egyptians had a more efficient system with different symbols for 1, 10, and 100. Using this system, they could write 24 using 6 symbols, 2 tens, and 4 ones. Then, in 3300 BCE, we have bronze. They began using metal instead of stone. They also discovered that copper could be extracted from rocks. Bronze, a harder metal, was made by mixing copper with tin. Now, I made a little typo there with those two words. I need to correct it, actually. So I can correct it later. Then 3200 BCE, we have Stonehenge. Work begins on the monument Stonehenge in England. At this time, it doesn't have much stone, but it's a hedge, sacred place surrounded by a bank and ditch. Then we have migration. People begin to arrive in the area to the Persian Gulf. They speak a different language from the locals. Both migrants and locals form the Sumerian civilization. Then 3100 before current era, we have writing. Middle Eastern traders begin to create the first permanent records, and I get into it a bit later. Then add 3000. BCE, we have candles. Cave painters were using because their fuel didn't spill and they were easier to carry around. The first ones had been found in Egypt and Crete. They were made by dipping thin cords into molten beeswax. We also have lubricants. First wheeled vehicles needed lubrication because the wooden wheels wrapped on the wooden axles created a lot of heat. Oil and fat eased the problem temporarily, but it burned away too quickly. The Egyptians were the first ones to make fat and lime to begin making long-lasting lubricants, 1500 BCE. We also have the plank boat. First one came, not entirely sure, from ancient Egypt, Abydos. South of Cairo, archaeologists found 14 large boats which had been made 5,000 years ago by sewing planks together into ropes. The boats had no frame and kept the water with reeds placed between the planks. We also have calendars. The first calendar appeared in Babylonia, ancient state in southern Mesopotamia. It wasn't very accurate because it was based on both the moon and sun and it kept getting out of line with the seasons. The Egyptians made calendars based on the annual Nile flooding, and they were the first to make a calendar based on the sun. And we also have cosmetics. Oldest known cosmetics were found in ancient Egyptian tombs dating 3000 BCE, used by both men and women. They had perfume, skin cream, eyeshadow, and mascara. They used various minerals to make different colors: iron oxide for red, malachite green. Then we have cotton, discovered by people in the valley of Indus River, now Pakistan. News of the discovery spread to Mesopotamia, where the Assyrians used cotton fabric as wool substitute. Then we have 3000 before current era. We have a new culture. On a group of islands in the Aegean Sea, the Cycladic culture emerges, remembered for its simplified marble sculptures of females. We also have the first known vet in the state of Mesopotamia, now Iraq. His name is Urlu Khaledina. He treats all kinds of animals using herbal medicine. Then we have development of writing. Middle Eastern traders create the first permanent records. The Sumerians create a new way of keeping track of trade. They make clay tokens in the shape of animals, jars, etc. They record deals by wrapping the tokens in clay envelopes using a pointed stick. They mark the soft clay with sign that showed its contents. In 3100 BCE, envelopes became clay squares and people recorded the trade deals with symbols. The Sumerians used marks that were simplified pictures. Then the pictures stopped looking like real things and became true writing, the cuneiform. Some problems with the writing were: 1. Every time a new word was invented, someone had to create new marks. Words like at or in couldn't be turned into pictures, so they started using words they could picture to represent those who couldn't. In sounded like water. also have the harp, one of the oldest musical instruments. Early harps resembled bows used to fire arrows, but had several stretches instead of one. We also have the lever. People may have been discovered that a rock which is impossible to lift directly could be levered, with a tree branch resting on a smaller stone. But it wasn't until 250 BCE that Archimedes came up with a full detailed explanation of how levers worked. Papyrus. Ancient Egyptians used papyrus like we use paper, made by squashing and drying a material of fibers until they stuck together. Then they were polished with a stone to form a smooth sheet. Papyrus was too stiff to fold, so they joined the sheets together to make long scrolls. Then we have painting with wax. Ancient Egyptians developed a new wall painting technique. They used a mixture of pigments and melted beeswax. When their paintings were complete, they heated the pigments and beeswax to melt it into the surface of the wall, known as encaustic painting. In fact, this technique was revived by US artist Jasper Jones in the 1960s. Then we have stone buildings. 2600 BC Egyptian pharaoh Djoser and architect Amhotep created the step pyramid at Saqqara, first stone-built pyramid. At the time, nearly all buildings were made of wood or bricks. There were only a few small stone buildings. Facts: the tallest one is the Great Pyramid of Giza. It's made from 2 million blocks of limestone and it's 147 meters high. Then we have a unit of length. The Egyptians established the most widely known unit of length, the cubit. It's the distance between the elbow and the end of the middle finger, 18 inches or 450 millimeters. We also have pottery. Merchants in the state of Babylonia use pottery as insurance. They take out a loan to equip a ship. If the ship sinks, they don't have to pay the money back. We also have Venus, as it was the brightest object in the evening sky or morning sky. It became one of the first heavenly objects studied. It's featured in the ancient astronomical records of China, Greece, Egypt, and South America. Then 2900 BCE we have dam. Most likely the earliest was 49 feet, 15 meters mound raised beside the Nile. It was there to protect the city of Memphis from flooding. At 2800 BCE, we have clay tablet book. First books. Writers used rectangles of soft clay called tablets. One tablet contained a lot of info, but not enough to be called a book. They used several tablets and numbered them. We also have burials. Northern Europe switched from mass burials to smaller graves containing only one person. And let's move on to gardening. Ancient Egypt, tree-lined walks and ponds with water and birds. Garden designers began working for wealthy clients. a source of fibers for clothes and robes. Then we have long wax casting, a new way of making hollow objects. A lamp of glaze covered with wax, molded and then covered in plaster. The mold is heated, wax runs out, leaving a gap between the clay and the plaster. Molten metal is poured into the gap and left to cool. This process was invented by the Sumerians again. And let's read up to here today. And we'll do another video with some more interesting info. At 2700 BCE, we have tea. According to tradition, Chinese Emperor Shen Nong was boiling water beneath a camellia tree. A leaf fell in, and that's how the first tea was created. But the drink was never mentioned anywhere until 800 AD, and it took another 800 years for tea to reach Europe. We also have the rain dance. Egyptian farmers dance to make it rain. This is recorded in paintings found in tombs. The dance aimed at bringing the community health and fertility. So, I hope you guys enjoyed this video. I hope you're now sleeping. Sweet dreams, and I'll see you in my